Hey guys, welcome to the continuation of the last lesson. And so the lesson ended a bit abruptly, and so what I want to do is to explain a bit more of where we want to go from here. And so as opposed to just going straight into the data model and starting to create it, I wanted you guys to get a visual of exactly how to create it. And so this lesson right here helps to explain that portion. And so we'll be using Photoshop, and it's just to visualize, move around the elements, and so you guys get a good picture of what exactly we want to do in the lesson. And then we will move on to creating the data model. You guys should have created your own data model mentally in your heads already. And then when you go to that next step and you watch that next video, you would have an idea of what exactly I'm doing or where my thoughts are leading to, okay? And so that's the purpose of this next lesson, which is a continuation from the last lesson, but I just chose to create it into two videos because one, it was getting too long. And the second is that I wanted to give you guys a bit of introduction more, and so that you can tune in, since they're a bit different. The other one was dealing more in Smart, the program itself, and this one went into Photoshop, and we did a bit of, let's say, we'll call it theory, for a lack of a better word. So I hope you guys enjoy the previous lesson, and I'm sure you have a wonderful time in this lesson as well. So what I want to do is, we want to create some different types of information that we'll be collecting. So for instance, just to give you an example, we'll be doing infractions for sure, right? So yeah. So we'll be doing infractions for sure. But what inside of the infraction will we actually be collecting? As an example, we would have maybe things related to some gill nets, since we're marine based, right? And so gill net is actually a type of what you call a gear, and so we know that there's a category here, and that is gear, or fishing gear to be more precise. So even though we're doing infractions, we'll be doing maybe infractions based on gill net, and so the category is fishing gear. There's other types of fishing gear, and so maybe you want to go in and you can do more. So not only gill nets, but you can have maybe long lines. You can have fish traps, right? But of course, as an infraction, you're not going to put all fishing gear, because I doubt there's any infraction on the mask that the fisher folk would use, or maybe on a snorkel. So there's no way you're going to put in all the gears that they use. It's only the gears that has an infraction on it. When I say infraction, I mean something in the law that you can prosecute them based on, right? And so that's what you would do in this case. Maybe, for instance, the type of hook. So in the case of hooks, you can put maybe the type of hooks, if there is a law based on that. If there's no law, then you don't need that, right? And so, just as an example, maybe under gill nets, you have actually several laws. So maybe the first law is the mesh size. So mesh size for us is 3 inches, right? And all of this is under gill nets. And then we have exceed length, I can't spell length, exceed 100 meters, right? And so it has to be 100 meters. And so this one is also possession of Gill Net, and it exceeds 300 meters, right? So you're not supposed to have more than 300 meters of net on the boat at all, at any time, right? In the water, you can't join the nets as well. So if you have nets out in the water, then they're not supposed to be joined. And they can join, but they has to at least be 100 meters. If it's more than that, then it's illegal. All right? Another one is, you know, maybe I think it's a mile or 2 miles, I'm not sure. 1 mile away from a town. So you're sitting within this within this vicinity. So you're setting your net just less than a mile away from any town. And so that's this one. And so you see under Gill Nets you have that. And so what we want to do is all of these, if we were to put them in a row, then you would get a data model that's, you know, filled with too much information. And so looking at this information we're collecting, we want to put this in a tree. All right? By putting it in a tree, then we know that you know, we can select infractions, and under infractions we have fishing gear, and it goes to Gill Nets, and then we select which one of them that we're doing. Likewise, when you select that one, what you can also do is for all of your infractions, or maybe just this one specific infraction, and it depends on how you do it, you can go and say, you know what, I also want to collect some other information. For instance, if we're only talking about gill nets, then maybe we want to know exactly the length of that gill net. Yeah. And so we put the length, and so the length is actually a numerical figure, and so you know this is the category numeric. It's not a tree. And so the number can be 100 meters, it can be 80 meters, it can be 120 meters, right? We also want to collect maybe the mesh size. And so in this section, this is also numeric. Okay? Maybe we want to collect the color for description, the color of mesh. And then this one wouldn't be numeric. It could be text, or it can be maybe there's another one that groups them together. Maybe there's only certain types of colors that are available, or certain categories, so you don't want it to be text. It's limited to maybe 5 or 6 options. And so in Smart it provides you with that option that you can just select that one value. So let's just go back, and so we have an idea of that. So let's just quickly go back to our, right. Let's just quickly go back into the Smart program. Oh. Unfortunately, I closed the program, so we can't go back. But when we go back in, we'll see that, right? But I think you guys have an idea of what I'm talking about. And so even though we have here all of this information, it's only when we select, for instance, maybe gill nets, that we want to enter this type of information. And so you don't want to break the entire infraction up into trees. Maybe you only want to do this portion here. And so here is where you enter this, because in long lines, they don't have mesh size. So you have to be smart on how you're developing it. And so that's why we want to do some planning before we go into that. And if you notice, we're only talking about infractions here. And we can go into other stuff. So remember I told you that based on the patrol, you can collect some information before you take off on your boat. So maybe you're talking about, who's on the boat with you? We have this one called Logistic Support. And so in Logistic Support, we have different entities that we can say, under here we have maybe the name. So this one's maybe Coast Guard. Who's actually going on this patrol. We can have police. We can have our military. They're called BDF, Belize Defense Force. And so we have these different types of entities, right? We also have their name, and so for you it depends on where you want to put it. And so maybe you want to put the name first, and then followed by selecting these in categories. And so you decide on that. And so we put the name of that individual, right? In these different entities here. I just want to sort this a little better. And that's why I'm using Photoshop, since I can do stuff like this. All right. And this is the order we're selecting the information, right? Okay. Let's also give this another color, since we're maybe doing another. And maybe this one's on the screen. Right? Yeah, and so all of these are on those colors or whatnot. Okay. All right. Back into it. Screen mode. Okay. And then so we have ranks. So for the Coast Guard, they have what is called a petty officer, and then there's different ranks. So petty officer 1. And let's just do it like this, but in the SMART program, you're not supposed to do it like that. And you have to continue to do it like this. Right? So maybe you want to create another one, Petty Officer 2 and Petty Officer 3. You can also have Seaman, which is SN. And you can have new recruits, Seaman Apprentice, right? SNAP. And so all of these can be listed linearly like that, and so you select the one you want in the program. All right. And police, you also put in the rank. You can create it in one table like this, and that's recommended. And so in one section for the police, you can have the lieutenant or the sergeant, likewise the BDF, the recruit or the private or whatever, and you put all of them in the same. If it doesn't make the list too big, right? And in SMART, you try to avoid scrolling. You don't want to scroll. You want everything to be quick clicks, because you want to make sure that the data collecting is smooth and easy. You don't want to be typing. So for instance, even the names, typing names is actually a bit tedious. And so if you have maybe certain individuals that you for sure are the users of that area, then maybe you can create a listing of those names. And so your team doesn't have to type in their names. They can just select on that list. This is the individual we're talking about, right? And you use the text feature as little as possible. You want to use the other features, all right? And so that's what you continue to do. Then of course, since we're doing marine, we can also do maybe something like, let's change this color a bit. Or pink. Right. And this one's maybe a vessel inspection. All right. So before we start the patrol, we want to do some vessel inspection, right? When I learned SMART, all of this information came already. We have this great guy, Julio Maz, and he ensured that we had all of this already and we didn't have to go and figure it out. As you may be doing, he has pushed the smart program in Belize for quite some time, and it took him quite a while to get it to where it is right now. And so all of this is courtesy of his efforts in Belize. All right, so in the case of vessel inspection, this one's pretty simple, but you can have, like, for instance, maybe you're checking the engine, so check engine. And then under check engine, you have maybe different types. We also can do maybe check prop, right? Now we'll expand on one of them, and then we can do check the hull, right? And that's the hull of the boat itself. And under, for instance, check engine, we can say if it's checked and is it working, and maybe there's issue in case of oil, or maybe there's issue based on the battery or something like that, right? And so just like how we expanded in this section, we can continue to expand here. Or you can make it a bit simpler for your team if that's okay. You can just put check engine, and then you can put yes, it was checked. And then you put next section, if it was checked, and is it good or bad or maybe okay, or moderate or whatever range or you want to do. Or you can go more detail, like in the case of here, okay? And as you can see, every time you do this, you expand on all the others. All of these are options that you see. These are different viewings that you can see on your screen. So for instance, if I click on infractions, before I clicked on this, I would have infractions. The type of observation I was making was either infraction, logistic, or vessel. So in my one screen, so in my one screen, all right, in my one screen, this is all what I would see, all right? And these would be listed off, and I would click or tap on one of these options. In my second screen, based on the infraction, we don't only have fishing gear infractions, we can have other types of infractions. But then you would see the second screen, and so that would be based on what's in here. And so your screen refreshes on the device, and then you can do fishing gear infractions. Maybe you can do infractions based on maybe seasons, maybe based on the type of species or whatnot. And so it lists off the different types of infractions, and then followed by that, and based on fishing gear, you have the other sections. Your other screen would be gill nets, long lines, fish traps. And then if you selected gill nets, your next screen would look like this. Can you please tell me the type of information? And then finally, after all of this you've done, you want to also enter this information based that you select gill nets. We want to say, it had this length, it had this mesh size, and the color of mesh was this. All right? And so these are your different screens. When you finally finish this, you can have maybe an option that says, I'd like to save a picture, and then you can actually take a picture of the gill net. And you can also set, maybe I want to take several pictures. Maybe it's just not one picture, it's multiple pictures. And you can do that as well. All right? And then that would actually end this section, and then you save it, and then it collects the GPS coordinate of where you are, and then you go back to this screen. If you need to do another infraction, maybe there were 2 gill nets, you repeat the entire process and you enter the specific information to the second net. If there were 3 gill nets, you do it once more. All right? And so that's how you do the data collection. So you want to design your data model based on this information here. And so we'll end the lesson here. with the planning phase, and then we'll go back into the data model the next time, and then we'll proceed from there. I think this has been a wealth of information, and maybe from here you guys can actually think about, the different types of information you want to collect. It's good to collect as much information as you can, because after you've developed a system for so many years, then you can run queries based on these different types of information. Maybe you can start to run maybe statistical analysis and that type of thing. I'm not at that level yet, and so fortunately I'm still at the data collecting phases, but I'm going to be sharing as much as I can with you guys. So guys, that concludes the lesson. And that concludes the lesson. I hope you guys had a wonderful time. It's quite a long lesson. You can take your time and you go through it as you need to. If you have any questions, please put it in the comments. I'll be able to answer as much as I can and as quickly as I can. And if I can't answer the question, maybe we can work together to solve your issue. And maybe you can also go to the forum, and you can visit that forum, and you can see all of the other information in there. Maybe they already have the answer to your question. Okay? And so for right now, we'll put a pause to the lessons, and I make sure you guys subscribe to the channel and to stay tuned for upcoming lessons as well. And it's my pleasure for you to get to know SMART with me. All right?